Most people think they know ribs. They've done the dry rub, the smoke, maybe a store-bought glaze. But there is one flavor combination quietly taking over competition pits and backyard grills in 2026, and once you taste it, you will never go back to plain barbecue sauce again. We are talking hot honey and cherry smoke. And by the end of this video, your rib game will never be the same. Here's what we're diving into today: the science behind why this combo works so well together, a full step-by-step recipe you can execute at home this weekend, and one technique, a glazing method most pitmasters keep to themselves, that is the difference between good ribs and ribs people talk about for years. Stick with me, because the most important tip comes at the very end, and it's the one thing almost everyone skips. Let's start with the elephant in the room. Hot honey has been around for a while. Mike's Hot Honey, local craft versions. You've seen it drizzled on pizza, on fried chicken. So why is it suddenly dominating the barbecue world in 2026? The answer has everything to do with what smoke does to sugar, and that reason is stranger than you'd think. We'll get there. First, let's talk cherry. Cherry wood smoke is one of the most underused smoking woods in the average backyard arsenal. Most people reach for hickory, maybe apple, sometimes mesquite. But cherry wood produces this deep, slightly sweet, almost wine-dark smoke that stains the bark of your ribs a gorgeous mahogany color. It's mild enough that it doesn't overpower the meat, but complex enough that every single bite has this lingering, fruity depth that you can't quite put your finger on. And that mystery is exactly what makes people ask, what is in these ribs? Now pair that wood with hot honey, and here's where the chemistry gets interesting. Honey is roughly 80% sugar, and sugar undergoes what's called the Maillard reaction when it hits heat. That's the same reaction that creates a crust on a sear, that gorgeous brown bark on brisket. When hot honey hits a rack of ribs over indirect heat, it doesn't just sweeten, it caramelizes, it deepens. It creates this lacquered, almost crackly glaze with a slow burn at the back of your throat from the chili. The cherry smoke wraps around all of that and adds dimension: sweet, heat, smoke, fruit. Your palate doesn't know where to focus, so it just keeps coming back for more. Okay, let's build these ribs from the ground up. You'll need 2 racks of St. Louis cut spare ribs. These are meatier and have better fat distribution than baby backs, which means more flavor and more forgiveness if you run a little hot. For the dry rub, combine 2 tablespoons of smoked paprika, 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, 1 tablespoon of onion powder, 2 teaspoons of black pepper, 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, 1 teaspoon of cayenne, and 1 teaspoon of dried thyme. That thyme is your secret garden note. It plays beautifully against the cherry smoke. Mix that up. Coat your ribs generously on both sides, and let them sit uncovered in the fridge overnight. At minimum, 4 hours. The salt is doing critical work here, pulling moisture to the surface and then reabsorbing it with all those spices. Dry brining your rub is not optional if you want depth. Now here's something most people get completely wrong about smoking ribs, and this is the open secret of the competition circuit. Temperature is not about the number, it's about the consistency. Your target is 225 to 250 degrees Fahrenheit, but what actually destroys a rack of ribs is temperature swings. Every time you spike to 300 and drop back to 200, you're tightening and loosening the muscle fibers, squeezing out moisture. So get your smoker dialed in before the meat ever goes on. Cherry wood chunks, not chips. Chunks burn slower and give you a steadier, more even smoke profile. If you're using a charcoal smoker, bank your coals to one side. Kettle grill, 2-zone setup, ribs on the cool side, lid vent positioned over the meat to draw smoke across it. Ribs go on bone side down, and here's where we run the 3-2-1 method with a twist. 3 hours of open smoke, mahogany bark forming, that cherry wood doing its quiet magic. After 3 hours, you'll notice something amazing: the color. Deep reddish brown, almost like stained wood. That's the cherry. That's your sign you're on the right track. Now the 2. Wrap your ribs in butcher paper, not foil. Foil steams the ribs and you lose bark. Butcher paper breathes. Tuck a little pat of butter inside the wrap, a drizzle of apple cider vinegar, and 2 tablespoons of your hot honey. Seal it up and back on the smoker for 2 more hours. The honey inside that wrap is going to melt into the meat, penetrating every layer. The vinegar is cutting through the richness and keeping things bright. After those 2 hours, unwrap, and this is where most home cooks stop. Don't stop here. This last hour is everything. For the glaze, you need a 1/4 cup of hot honey, 2 tablespoons of cherry preserves, not jam, preserves. You want actual fruit pieces, 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, and a 1/2 teaspoon of smoked paprika. Whisk that together over low heat until it thickens slightly, about 3 minutes. Now brush it onto your ribs every 15 minutes for the final hour. Each coat builds on the last. The first layer soaks in. The second starts to set. The third and fourth layers create that lacquered, glossy, pull-apart, beautiful finish that photographs like a dream and tastes even better.
Butcher secret: the glaze should go on when the ribs are at their hottest point, right after you unwrap them. Hot surface, hot glaze. The sugars instantly set on contact and bond to the bark instead of just sitting on top and sliding off. Cold glaze on cooling ribs is why homemade glazes never look like competition ribs. Now you know.
Pull your ribs when they hit an internal temp of 195 to 203 degrees, or when a toothpick slides in and out of the meat between the bones with zero resistance. Let them rest, and I mean actually rest, tented loosely, for at least 15 minutes. Resting is not a suggestion. The juices are redistributing through the entire rack. Cut into them too early and you'll watch everything you worked 8 hours for run right onto your cutting board. Slice between every bone, and here is the moment I promised you at the start, the thing that ties the whole flavor story together. Finish each rib with one more tiny drizzle of cold hot honey, straight from the bottle right before serving. The contrast of the warm, smoky, caramelized glaze against the fresh, raw heat of the uncooked honey is what makes this dish unforgettable. Warm and cool, cooked and raw, sweet and fiery, cherry and smoke. It's all there in one bite. And that layering of the same ingredient in 2 states, that's what separates a good dish from a legendary one. Now, here's the question I want to leave you with. What's the boldest flavor combination you've ever tried on ribs? Because I have a feeling some of you have been experimenting out there, and I want to hear about it. Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And the best one might just become the next recipe on this channel. Hit that like button if these ribs are going on your weekend menu. And subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Because next time, we're heading somewhere you would not expect to find the world's most perfectly smoked meat. And trust me, it will change how you think about barbecue forever.